The taste of salt and bile was the only thing left in Zeno's mouth. He was coughing. The body convulsed in the cold, damp sand of Piraeus. Every lung spasm was a violent reminder that he was still alive, unfortunately. Around him, the scene was not one of an accident. It looked like a massacre. The seawater was not blue. It was stained a deep purple, almost black. Blood? No, something much more valuable than human blood. Tire purple. Tons of fabric dyed with the secretion of thousands of crushed sea snails. A commodity worth more than its weight in gold was now nothing more than rubbish floating in dirty foam. Shattered wood. Broken amphorae. The smell of soaked hardwood mixed with the stench of rotting seaweed. Zeno of Citium, the merchant, the businessman, the prodigal son of a line of Phoenician traders, lifted his heavy head. The sand scratched his eyes. He looked out at the gray horizon, where his ship, his fortune, and his future had been devoured in a matter of minutes. There was nothing left. Absolutely nothing. An ordinary man would have screamed. He would have torn his clothes, or what was left of them. He would have cursed Poseidon, the winds, the crew, and his own mother for giving birth to him. Most men, right there, would have looked for the nearest piece of rope in the wreckage. Suicide is the cowardly and logical way out for those who lose their identity along with their bank balance. If you are what you have, and you have nothing, then you are nobody. You are a ghost who forgot to die. But Zeno didn't scream, he didn't cry. He looked at the rags stuck to his thin body. He felt the cold penetrate his bones. The financial ruin was absolute. He was in a strange land, with no credit, no friends, no reputation. He was a beggar, an outcast. And it was at that moment, at the bottom of the well of human existence, that the absurd happened. A low laugh began to bubble in his throat. It felt like choking. But it grew. It became a laugh, a hysterical, maniacal laugh that cut through the sound of the waves and the wind. Zeno laughed in the face of the abyss. He looked up at the stormy sky, opened his arms as if inviting more misfortune, and shouted into the nothingness, "Fortune wants me to philosophize." That was not the laughter of madness. It was the laughter of liberation, the sound of invisible chains breaking. Zeno realized, with brutal clarity, that the universe had just done him a favor. The ship didn't just sink goods. He shattered the illusion of control. To understand the insanity of this moment, you need to understand the weight it carried. Phoenician purple was not just a product, it was status. It was power. Kings killed for that shade of purple. Empires negotiated treaties based on those trade routes. Zeno was a prince of commerce. He had everything society says you need to be happy, and the sea took everything in the snap of a finger. Chaos is the only legitimate ruler of the material world. Imagine the scenes. A drenched man, surrounded by millions in loss, laughing alone on the beach. Anyone passing by would say he had lost his mind, but he was just beginning to find reason. He got up. He staggered towards Athens, not like a proud merchant, but like a hungry vagabond. He entered the city that prided itself on being the cradle of wisdom, but which was full of hypocrites and sophists selling speeches for silver coins. Zeno had no coins. He was just hungry. Hunger for food and hunger for meaning. He entered a bookstore. The only place where a man without money can touch the minds of the dead. The bookseller was reading aloud Book 2 of Xenophon's memoirs. The text talked about Socrates, about how he chose death over dishonor, about how virtue was the only real good. Zeno felt a punch in the stomach. Those words were more valuable than all the purple he had lost. Where can I find men like this? Zeno asked, his eyes shining with a new fever. The bookseller looked at the street. He saw a figure pass by, a dirty man with a torn cloak, carrying his few belongings in a bag. It was Crates the Cynic. "Follow that man," said the bookseller. Zeno followed. And then the real torture began. Crates was not an air-conditioned classroom teacher with slides. He was a street dog. Cynic philosophy was brutal. It was about living according to nature, disregarding all social conventions. Crates looked at the former merchant, saw the wounded pride hidden beneath the forced humility, and decided to break it. The test was not a written exam. Crates ordered Zeno to carry a pot of lentil soup through the streets of Ceramiko, the busiest neighborhood in Athens. For a formerly rich man, this was social death. Carrying food like a slave? Expose yourself to ridicule? Zeno tried to hide the pot under his cloak, embarrassed. He still cared what others thought. His ego was still tied to the image of a successful merchant. Crates saw the hesitation. He saw the shame. With a quick swing of his staff, he broke the pot. The hot soup ran down Zeno's legs. The orange liquid stained his tunic, running down to his ankles, making it look like he had defecated in his pants. The people around stopped. They pointed. They laughed. The humiliation was public, total and visceral. Zeno wanted to disappear. He wanted the earth to swallow him. He ran, escaped from shame. But Crates' voice pursued him, echoing through the alleys. "Why are you running away, my little Phoenician? Nothing terrible happened to you." This sentence was Zeno's second shipwreck. The first destroyed his wealth. The second destroyed his ego. He stopped running. What was shame? Just the opinion of idiots who can't even control their own bladder, let alone their destiny. If he could lose a fleet of ships and survive, what was a little soup on his legs? Zeno cleaned up the mess. But it didn't clear the lesson. He realized that Crates' cynicism was powerful but incomplete. There was a lack of order, it lacked logic. The world wasn't just chaos and barking. There was a logos, a divine reason that permeated everything. From the shipwreck to the spilled soup, he didn't have money to rent a classroom, so he went to the street, to the painted portico, the Stoa Poikile, a public, noisy place, full of common people, prostitutes, traders, and thieves. It was there, amid the noise of the city, that Stoicism was born. Zeno began to teach that the shipwreck was not an accident. It was a necessary destination. He coined the idea that we don't control what happens to us, only how we react. It seems cliché today, but back then? At that time, it was a nuclear revolution in the human mind. Think about the audacity. A man who lost everything tells the world, wealth is indifferent. The only thing that matters is your virtue. He did not say this from the comfort of a palace, as Seneca would do years later. He said it like a man who slept on the sand and ate scraps. His authority came from his scar, not his diploma. He looked his students in the eyes and said, "I had a prosperous trip when I was shipwrecked." This is the phrase that separates the boys from the men, the tourists of the warriors. The paradox is brutal. The shipwreck destroyed the merchant, but created the philosopher. If the winds were favorable that day, if the sea was calm, Zeno would have arrived at the port, sold his purple, become immensely rich, and died a fat and forgotten nobody. His name would be on some rotting tax register, not on the foundation of Western civilization. The disaster was his salvation. But don't be fooled. Zeno's Stoicism is not about being a stone without feelings. It's about understanding the geometry of destiny. Imagine a dog tied to a cart. If the cart moves, the dog has two options. He can follow the cart and walk with dignity. Or you could be dragged by the neck, scraping your skin on the asphalt, screaming and resisting. Either way, he goes where the cart goes. Most of you are being dragged. You lose your job and act like the world has ended. You get dumped and think life has no meaning. You lose money on a stupid investment and go into depression. You are the dog being strangled by the collar, resisting the inevitable movement of reality. Zeno chose to walk. He looked at the cart of destiny, which had just run over his financial life, and decided to run alongside it. His legacy is not calm, it's invincibility. How do you hurt a man who laughs at his own misfortune? How do you blackmail a man who doesn't need money? How do you humiliate a man who doesn't care about your opinion? You can't. This man is untouchable. It has become a fortress. Zeno's shipwreck teaches us that the universe takes everything you have to show you what you are. When the tide comes in and takes your toys away, what's left in the sand? Is there fear left or character left? Today, we live in a glass society. Any small impact breaks us. We are offended by words, traumatized by contrary opinions, destroyed by economic fluctuations. We are weak because we are attached to comfort, to image, to the approval of strangers on the internet. Zeno would look at us and laugh. Not the crazy laugh from the beach, but a laugh of contempt. He would see a generation of men drowning in a glass of water, while he learned to swim in an ocean of misfortune. The final lesson is a slap in the face for your victimization. The problem is not the sinking. The problem is you. The external event is neutral. The sea doesn't hate you, the market doesn't hate you, the virus doesn't hate you, they just are. Tragedy arises only when you insist that reality should be different from what it is. Zeno died holding his breath. They say he tripped, broke a toe, hit the ground, and quoted a verse from Timothy. "I'm coming. Why do you push me?" He knew when to leave. Now, look at your life. Look at their tragedies. The car that broke down. The promotion that didn't come. The bill arrived high. You call that a problem? That's a joke. You're complaining about scratches while Zeno has lost limbs? The question that remains is not whether you will sink. You are going. We all go. Health will fail. Money will run out. People will die. The sinking is the only certainty. The question is, who will you be when you reach the beach? The weeping merchant who begs the gods for crumbs from a past that never returns? Or the philosopher who wipes the salt from his eyes, spits out the bitter taste of defeat and says, "Great, now I'm free." Most of you say you want to be strong. He says he wants to be stoic. But at the first wave that hits your chest, you swallow water and ask for your mother. It's easy to be a philosopher with a full belly and a paid bill. I want to see who you are when the water hits your neck. You say you are virtuous, but be honest with the mirror now. If you lost everything today, would you have the strength of Zeno, or would you be the first to look for the rope? Don't give me pretty speeches. I want the visceral truth. Comment below. If your ship sank now, what would be left of you? Just fear or a new man? Confess your weakness or prove your strength?